No, because I have a blue screen, and they're trying, he just said that it means that there's no camera, a Zoom camera.
If you hear that, technical difficulties.
How many years have you been doing Zoom now?
5, 4, 5?
I almost started council was on Zoom.
Yeah, COVID, right? That's when we started
that's
it?
when we started.
Wow, that makes
Oh, that's a good sign. I think.
Did you fix it yet, Yvette?
I just sent them a message. They said go ahead and start.
You did?
Really?
Fantastic.
All right. We're going to call the Traffic Safety Committee meeting to order. This is the Wednesday, November 27th, 2024 meeting. And start off with a roll call.
Brandon Swanson,
Here.
Paul Tomasi,
Here.
Bob Harari.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. Public appearances. Under the Brown Act, public comment for matters on the agenda must relate to that agenda item, and public comments for matters not on the agenda must relate to the subject matter jurisdiction of this legislative body. This is a warning that if a member of the public attending this meeting remotely violates the Brown Act by failing to comply with these requirements of the Brown Act, then that speaker will be muted. We will now open public comment.
I know I'm on the agenda later, but I have 2 comments.
Can you say your name for the record, please?
Karen Ferlito.
Thank you.
The parking lot is wonderfully paved, but where the blocks are set really makes the cars hard to maneuver around. And that's a concern to me because I have a hard time getting in there anyway. And today it was especially hard because it's a very large SUV that is not pulled all the way up to the cement blocks. So
City Hall.
City Hall parking.
Yeah, could you clarify where you're talking about?
right there.
In the City Hall parking lot, okay,
City
thank you.
Yes, right out there in the second parking place, which I could hardly get around the car to pull in. I had to jockey around a lot, and I don't know how I'll get out. My second concern is I just went to the post office, and of course I went by my favorite corner by the Village corner, and there is a very large SUV parked there in the commercial loading zone with a handicap placard on it. And my concern is that we should keep an eye on the AB 413 sites that were marked as commercial loading zones, because if they start having people who can park forever on them, you can't really be daylighting. And I know that people with handicap placards can park anywhere, I think, and for unlimited amounts of time. So that may defeat the purpose of having the area in front of the stop sign marked as a commercial loading zone, because we thought it was going to mean that they wouldn't be there very long. So maybe it's just something to keep an eye out for and reevaluate at some time in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I comment on the first, Ms. Ferlito's?
Sure, if you'd like to.
The parking lot, the reason it was restriped to make it more ADA accessible. So between the parking, the tire stops and the wall, there's a 36-inch pathway for someone in a wheelchair to be able to go up. We're going to restripe it so it's more obvious, but that's what's pushing the cars further into the middle of the parking lot. So it's by design, but we need to meet ADA requirements.
Just makes the parking lot less usable for everybody.
All right.
Hi, Rob Lechner. I live at Ocean and Santa Fe. A couple things. One, a question. When you come down Ocean from Carpenter, there's a sign that says, at the stop sign there, that says no tour buses and no trucks. Is that truck defined as 3 axles or greater? So that's just a question, because it is used by trucks every day, all the time, up and down the hill. So, and these are box trucks. Reason I asked too is when we moved into that little court, we had a 26-foot box truck. A moving company came and parked right there in that little cul-de-sac to unload us. That was a 2-axle truck. So I'm not sure if it's by design, if it's something greater than 2 axles. I get it. So that's one question. Second thing is, this committee was kind enough to address the Torres and 6th intersection for us. I've got a series of pictures. I think I was quasi-asked to kind of keep an eye on it for all of you. So I've got some pictures, and perhaps I can send it to someone. So the compact parking, which would be at the southwest corner adjacent to, or right next to the hotel, is not working. We've got SUVs, high-profile vehicles. They're now parking there. So moving the stop sign, I think, did a little good. The compact parking has done, I think, virtually no good. In fact, I just took pictures on the way here. So I'd request again, if we could, to revisit that whole street, perhaps putting in some calming devices, speed lumps. I know they're probably taboo, but I've said that before, so I'd like us to investigate that. And if nothing else, perhaps look at putting a stop sign at Santa Fe and 6th to slow it halfway down the hill and halfway up the hill. And again, as I've shared with this group, I know, and I've talked to neighbors about it, because several neighbors, to me, are pretty irritated with the issue. Not with me, but with the traffic flow and the speeding. That if the city addresses 6th, you're going to kick the problem to 5th. You kick it to 5th, you kick it to 4th. So it might be more of a holistic issue. But I've seen other communities do very effectively calming devices, and they'll put them up for a temporary period of time, a couple of months. It deters people at least on that street for a period of time. Then they go some other place and they bother another street. But at any rate, just thought I'd mention it to you. So perhaps a stop sign, investigating that, or speed lumps. And again, that I know last time I was here, there was another citizen here, and what I'd suggested, eliminating those 2 parking spaces, by the way, we agreed to make them compact parking. I had suggested we eliminate those 2 parking spaces for the hotel. That might still be the only solution, because you really can't see coming down Torres on 6. It's really a blind corner right there. So just thanks for letting me share that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob. Go ahead and send me those pictures too.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. Just send them to me.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Dale Byrne. I'm speaking as a resident. First, somebody had contacted me, and I spoke with Bob about this morning, so he's aware of it now. 4th and Santa Rita, which I believe at one of our previous meetings here, there were some shrubs that needed to be trimmed back. The neighbor who's in that area said it's still a really dangerous intersection. He's seen near T-bone situations you just can't see, so he just wanted to put it on the record for the next meeting. He'd like to put a stop sign at the left side and not the right side, which may be just worse, because then it's confusing. The other thing I wanted to bring up, and this is just a thought, not suggesting we do anything except for one potential test. During Car Week, we actually tested out the speed bumps. Is that what you call them?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I guess it seemed to work. I know they're taboo in general in the town, but I was wondering if maybe there might be some situations, and we just heard of one, I guess, that we might test it to see if it works. And one suggestion I have, people are running stop signs, and they have been forever, and it's pretty tough to have our officers go patrol every stop sign and start giving out tickets. I've done ride-alongs, and it's not a good thing. So Scenic and 13th is a corner in particular that's very busy all the time, and I go down there every night and just about get run over every time. I have to wait for 2 cars to go through before I can flag one down and get them to stop. So I don't know if it would work to put the speed bump there so that people know there's at least a stop sign. There's some reason to stop. I don't know if that's going to work. I haven't seen the data on that. I know Bob has some questions about it, but just a suggestion.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you.
So, okay. Yeah, I just want to comment on the speed humps. I think it'd be a good idea for us at our next meeting to do a presentation on speed humps. We've done it in the past. We've done reports to council on the pros and cons of them, and then have maybe a decision by us, and then a council decision on whether it's something we want to explore. But I think it'd be valuable to have that discussion here on those. Oh, yeah, I got it. No hand raised.
You might want to ask if there's anyone on there.
Is there anybody else with any public comment? Okay. All right, let's get to the agenda. We have a presentation. Bob, you taking that one?
I am taking that one.
I think the red light on the way out. I just texted Daniel.
This is introduction to Monterey County's Regional Vision Plan.
That's correct. Regional Vision Zero plan.
It only says Vision Plan, so I thought maybe it was my glasses.
A little typo. We have no vision. We will get the vision.
Can we use that? Or that's not working at all?
About 6 or 7 slides. Oh, there we go.
It's on your
Fantastic.
screen. It's not on the
Oh.
projector.
This never happens at council meetings.
Brandon, you want to hold up the monitor
Thank you.
for all to
That's
see?
actually what I was thinking.
Could the person online see it?
So,
He said the projector will turn on after it powers down.
oh, okay. Okay. The green light.
Are you gonna hold up the monitor like John Cusack in
was
the
going
movie
to.
with the boombox?
Say anything?
Yeah, that's it. I couldn't remember the name of the movie.
Janice will have way up.
Oh, there we go.
Please stand by. We are experiencing technical difficulties. We could wait on that and talk about some old business and discussion items while we're getting that fixed.
I think we're good, Chief. It just cycled.
Great.
There
Daniel,
was
can you grab a
message,
couple of
too, that
lights?
said the bulb's going out, so I think we need a new bulb. Awesome. Okay.
Daniel,
Turn, yeah.
can you take a couple lights out?
It's the
There you go.
second and
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Sorry about that. All right. So what I wanted to do is I would give a brief introduction of a new program. It's called the Vision Zero program. This program is a regional Monterey County-wide program. It's actually nationwide. It's just launching now. It's going to be developed over the next year or two. And it will affect Carmel, will affect all the agencies in California and probably much of the country. Ultimately, the purpose of this Vision Zero plan is to ultimately identify locations to improve traffic safety, hence why we wanted to bring it to this committee, and identify a list of projects which would be eligible for hopefully additional funding. Okay? So with that, we'll get started. And this was presented at the Transportation Agency of Monterey County, or TAMC's Technical Advisory Committee, which I was fortunate enough to sit on for the past 7 years, back in September. And I got the slides recently, and I wanted to just present at least the first half of this presentation. It'll only take 5 or so minutes. Next. Okay. The safe system approach aims to eliminate fatal and serious injuries for all road users, and that includes pedestrians, bicycles, motorcycles, vehicles, trucks, by accommodating human mistakes and keeping impacts on the human body at tolerable levels. So the Vision Zero, is to have 0 fatal accidents, 0 major injury accidents. But obviously that's a very lofty vision. But this program is the stepping stones to get to that vision. Next. The safe system principles are, I call it goals, Death and serious injuries are unacceptable. Humans do make mistakes. Humans are vulnerable to injuries. The responsibility is shared. It's not just the agency, it's not just the driver, it's not just the road conditions, it's not just the pedestrian, it's everyone's responsible. Safety, we're trying to make this proactive, be proactive, and redundancy is crucial. Next. So the Monterey County Regional Vision Zero Action Plan is funded through the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant, which was from the U.S. Department of Transportation. So it's a federal grant that was awarded to TAMC. It includes 11 jurisdictions that do not have action plans. Now, in Monterey County, the city of Salinas and the city of Monterey have their own Vision Zero action plans that are very tailored for those agencies, and they have a lot of data, they have a long list of projects, that type of thing. So they're a bit ahead of the curve. So TAMC wanted to do it for all the other smaller agencies like Carmel that don't have the resources necessarily to do our own action plan. But we already submitted a letter that we are interested in teaming up with TAMC. We are interested in helping to achieve the vision of Vision Zero. And here's the key, is that by being included in this action plan, we'll have eligibility for the Safe Streets and Roads grants, federal construction funding, federal and state, I should say. Next. Required action plan components. It's a commitment to zero fatalities and serious injuries. Like I said, we already submitted a letter that the city is committed to this. There will be a stakeholder committee, and I believe that's through the TAMC TAC committee, which Javier Hernandez will be the prime attendee going forward, and Rob will be the alternate, as he is. We'll have a safety analysis. We'll talk about that in a moment. There'll be a number of public engagements. There will be public meetings in the city limits, probably a year from now, maybe a year and a half from now, probably, Sunset Center type of thing. So there'll be community meetings with a consultant guided by TAMC to talk about this and to identify specific intersections, like Rob was saying, that Mrs. Ferlito was saying, those types of things, identify where issues may exist and how we can address it. There's equity considerations, policy and process improvements, strategy and project recommendations, and progress reporting. So again, the consultant's going to do the lion's share of the legwork. Next. And they're saying this is going to really take off from February through December of 2026. So, like I said, it's a 2-year program. They'll be identifying high injury network in each jurisdiction. Fortunately, we don't have high injury locations, but we do have locations that need improvement or could potentially need improvement. There'll be public outreach in each jurisdiction, as I mentioned, and then there'll be an action plan with a project list for each jurisdiction. So I think once that project list is identified, I think this traffic safety committee will be very instrumental in helping to mold that list and then prioritize that list. And last slide. So what our role, not just public works, but in our case, it's police, it's planning. What the consultant will be asking in the next couple of months is any speed survey information we have, any collision records we have, any daily traffic counts we have. So once that request comes in a couple of months, we'll file all the information that we do have and get it to them. It's in our mutual interest that they have all the information we have. They'll be attending Vision Zero task force meetings. They haven't been set up yet, but this committee might want to identify somebody to attend. Outreach coordination, and review and approve the action plan project list. So again, this is just a big, broad overview of a new plan that's just getting launched. They'll be kind of being developed in the next 2 years. And at the end of 2 years from now, we'll have a good list. Hey, we could be eligible for some additional funding to enhance, improve our, we already have a safe system overall, but there's always room for improvement in some areas. That's all I got. Happy to answer any questions.
So these aren't mandates, this is just developing a plan, and if we implement parts of the plan, we might be eligible for state money to help implement them.
Right, state and federal, right.
State and federal, okay.
But the money would be
after we do the work? It would be like a reimbursement thing, or do we apply for?
We're not there yet. We don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
Open up the comments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any comments?
Karen Ferlito. Health and safety is very important to me. And I don't know how we have escaped serious accidents in this town as long as we have. Because at night you cannot see people downtown, especially wearing black. We have intersections that are confusing, which we'll talk about later. But we have some definite places where people are crossing almost all the time at unsafe places. And one of them is coming out of Mission Trail Nature Preserve towards the Mission. They're crossing, not at the crosswalk, which is east of there, but they're crossing right as cars are coming down, gaining speed. Even though it's 25, they gain speed coming down that hill, and there's that median. And you sort of get hung out in the middle and so on. So I think that we definitely have intersections in the town that could be improved and crosswalks that can be improved. I think it's been complicated by the fact that the state of California made jaywalking legal, and we have so many people jaywalking in the middle of the block. The other complication that I see is cars are 22% bigger than they used to be. So when they do hit someone, they're more lethal. And the big, tall trucks, wide trucks, there are many streets in Carmel that when someone is coming facing you in one of those big vehicles, there's not very much room in between the two parked vehicles. The other area that I think could really use some enhancement is especially on Ocean Avenue, where you think about the fact that we have elderly people in this town and visitors, but they're crossing 6 lanes that are dedicated to cars. The 2 parking lanes and then the 2 traffic lanes. And if we could do bump outs at the corner of each of those intersections so that people were only crossing 4 lanes, I think it would be a real safety thing. So I'm not sure how you're going to gather data, but I think there are residents in this town who walk a lot. I walk to the post office. I walk as much as I can, and I know where there are certain deficits. There are also along, particularly along Ocean Avenue, where the stop sign is back from actually where the pathway is, and then the white line where you're required to stop at is way past there. So people are pulling right there. Instead of stopping at the stop sign and then inching forward, they're just going to the white line, and they're going right across where pedestrians cross. So I think whatever we can do to enhance safety so that we don't have fatalities and we don't have major accidents is great. And thank you, Bob, for attending those meetings.
A quick question for you, Karen. You said on Ocean Avenue there's that instance where people are going past the white line. Was that Ocean Avenue, or did you have a location?
Ocean Avenue down past the Normandy Inn, those intersections, many of them, the stop sign is behind the walkway and the white line is past it.
That's because the crosswalks are in line with the path.
Yeah, it's set far back.
So not on Ocean, coming into Ocean.
Okay.
Coming into Ocean, yes, from those side streets.
Okay,
And
thanks.
I have been walking at times and had a car just, and
think the
they're
sign-
stopping where they think they're allowed to stop, but they've really crossed into the pathway.
Right.
In my opinion, the signage is proper. It's the driver behavior. People are not doing what they probably should be doing.
Yeah.
Dale Byrne, I totally agree with everything that Karen just said. 150% agree with her. And she just saved Tampsey some money by starting the consulting project early, which we appreciate. And in addition, I think this is a good example where our state is passing laws like 413 without taking a real holistic view of it, sort of a one-size-fits-all. And now Tampsey is coming back and saying, I think we can do more things than the daylighting law. I mean, these things are just getting piled together when we probably should take a look. And this might be a good example of, and I agree with the bump outs. I was going to say that earlier, but that is one of the solutions for the daylighting law. And it's also a pretty attractive thing to do, could have some landscaping potential. So I love the fact that we can take a clear view of the whole city and not just take a one-size-fits-all solution that the state dictated. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Anybody online? Okay. All right, old business. We put these on old business even though they were brought up over the last, since the last meeting, but these have been reviewed in the past, so we put them under old business. And the first one is a review or request for stop signs eastbound and westbound at 6th Avenue and Dolores. So we have that, and we have obviously Karen's here to talk about those if you'd like to. We can hear comment, or unless you'd like us just to discuss it. It's up to you if you want to share your comments.
Karen Ferlito. The reason I asked this to be on the agenda is that is one of our busiest corners in town, both because there are, you know, the Village Corner is very popular and Flaherty's and so on, but it's also where everybody who lives south of Ocean Avenue has to cross to go to the post office every single day when they're going. And like I said, I often walk. But I have several times been almost hit by the eastbound, westbound traffic there because they don't often realize that north and south does not have a stop sign. So they feel they've stopped at the stop sign and it's their turn. And I have had a lot of near misses. One last week where a guy in a great big pickup truck, I think, was assuming I was going to stop. I was going north to the post office, and boom, he pulled right in front of me. And of course I said, "You had a stop sign." And he said, "So did you." And I said, "No, I didn't." And then he flipped me off. So that one I think is definitely one that could use a four-way stop. I think it's health and safety. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. These two items, the next one, they kind of roll together, but I want to touch on this a little bit because we were joking a little bit yesterday about this being a greatest hits tour, you know, and because if you've been on this board or this commission, this committee for years, it's a lot of the same issues keep coming up. And so I did a little digging. I dug through some old files to see, haven't we talked about this like multiple times and we continue to do nothing, or we have a reason why we don't do it? And these two items are similar. My initial response on this one is we're just about to implement the daylighting laws, which I think is really going to help with the safety of it and the visibility. But as I dug, I found a 2005 council report that the police department and the traffic safety committee put together to present to city hall or city council about a report we did. We hired a company called Higgins and Associates to do an assessment of all of downtown, from 5th to 8th and Junipero down to Monteverde, to implement stop signs, four-way stops throughout downtown. And I don't know what council decided because I only have the original copy, so I have to dig a little bit further. And I just dug this up at 1 o'clock. We did a phase 1 of this where we did implement a couple four-way stops, which we have in town. But I don't know what phase 2 looks like, or phase 3. But the only issues that were on this were 3 intersections that we absolutely did not want four-way stops at. One was San Carlos and 6th, the other was Mission and 6th. That's because the fire department opposed four-way stops because as they leave the fire station, they need to get going. They don't want to delay response times and have that issue. And there's the buses stop there, so they didn't want that. So that was one of the recommendations. The other recommendation was San Carlos and 5th, which I know is our next item, and I'm just jumping the gun a little bit. And then we did a report on that with our traffic officer, Steve Rana, back then, as to why we didn't want that. And we didn't want a four-way stop there because of the incline coming up from the post office as you're traveling east and trucks and cars rolling back, which would cause a safety hazard and probably more collisions as people back up and hit. Now, I'm not saying those are things we don't want to do again. I'm just pointing out that as we joked about it, we've been on this road before, and I'm curious to dig up that report which recommended we do four-way stops downtown at all of our intersections, except for those, and see what council's decision was on it then, and bring that back to this group at our next meeting to share with everyone, so we're not reinventing a wheel that was rolled 20 years ago. Maybe it's the right approach to go to council with that report and say, we did phase 1, 20 years later, maybe we should look at phase 2 of that report. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. I've never thought about this, but, Karen brought up the notion that this road, Dolores, going this way, the way we're looking down it right now, is because of what's at the end of that street. There's more traffic going this way. So I wonder if we could do any traffic surveys too to understand if maybe, so if we don't go down the route of like implementing the plan, maybe we can have an understanding of the traffic volume in these different intersections up and down 6. Like maybe this one is the most. And that was one of the things we've said in the past, is that this is a problem that exists all over. It's not a unique problem to this intersection, but raising that point of the sort of like call it attractive nuisance at the end of the road in the post office, maybe this one is unique. So maybe we can get that data too, because I don't think you had time to pull traffic collision data for this one, right?
Oh, I did, yeah.
Okay.
Of course I did.
Of course you did. You're amazing.
In the last 5 years, we've had 0 accidents in the intersection there. But that doesn't mean there aren't close calls, because,
Right.
I mean, we all drive it. The issue that was brought up in 2004 was the confusion of where do you stop, where don't you stop? And if you're a tourist, you're looking at shops and pedestrians and for parking spots. And so every day when I drive it, I encounter people who are confused. They're either stopping when they aren't supposed to, or they're going when they're supposed to. And I think it's, as we get with, and I'm saying as technology has changed, we now have electric vehicles, which are much faster on the acceleration. So if you driving one now, I see how dangerous they can be. I think it's important that maybe we take a look again at that 2004 report. And maybe we present it here first,
Yeah,
and
I
then
think
we
that'd
make
be
a
good.
recommendation.
Yeah, and I think to the point I was trying to make about the volume, so like let's say it shows that this intersection gets, I'm just going to use round numbers, but 10,000 unique events a day, 10,000 cars a day, but all the other ones up and down 6 only get 5,000. Like maybe this one is like the most used, and that might be a reason to consider this one specifically. If we take that report forward and council says, we don't want to do 4 ways all over, maybe we differentiate this one. Because I agree with what you're saying. I mean, I walk up that way all the time, and it is like there's always confusion, but we don't have any accidents. But maybe the fact that there's potentially more traffic going through this intersection both ways just increases the odds. I mean, it's an odds game, right? Like
Right.
the odds are higher here perhaps, but we would need some data to back that up.
Yeah, I can get the data there, and I know why you're saying, because everybody's going to the post office, right, and driving back and
right.
forth, and foot traffic.
Mhm.
Yeah, I could get data for Dolores and compare it to, say, San Carlos.
Do we have a way of measuring foot traffic?
No.
Unless we just sat out there with a counter and went
Right.
click, click,
Right.
click, click, click. Okay.
Yeah.
Chief, can I ask, for the daylighting law, we're going to be starting to paint as soon as next week, when if council passes the final ordinance. So we'll be going out there starting to paint. Could you explain what the impacts would be at this intersection? Like what locations would become red curbs and loading zones, and how you think that would, or maybe from a different view, would that help?
I don't have the map in front of me, but I can tell you it's the approach side. So
All right.
I think on this one, we don't need to do any type of daylighting as you're driving north on Dolores because of that bump out.
Right.
That might be a big enough bump out and far enough back where we didn't need to do it. But
Turn around.
as
There we
road
go.
turns around,
This one with the white truck will get
where the truck is parked, that's going to be that might be commercial loading. We have to look at that. or it's a red zone. But I think we made that one commercial loading.
This one already is commercial.
They might have left it then. And again, I don't have the map in front of me, so I can't, but it's definitely, you know, those are the considerations we have to make. And then where the white car is, you don't need to move it from there. Across the street where the white car is, that is going to be marked as well. Thanks, Dale.
Where are we?
Ocean, 6th, and St. Carlos, Dolores.
Dolores right there.
So as I look at this, where, if you leave it right where it's at, it's Ocean, no, we're one block down. 6th, okay, here we go. The only spot that, this doesn't make sense. There, we have the wrong one. We are looking at a loading zone where this white truck is, and then 30-minute zones.
I guess that guy's gonna be.
Yeah, that's gonna be a loading zone as well.
The white car.
Yep.
Okay, so it really wouldn't be much different than what it is today on this picture.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah. And again, if it continues to be a safety hazard, again, by ordinance, we're creating these loading zones, but we can always take them out and make red zones or bicycle parking. It's a fairly flexible. The only hard part is going to council for an ordinance change or an update.
And for the record, Chief, if you recall, this came to the not Forest and Beach Commission. What commission is this? Traffic Safety Committee.
Yeah.
They're all blurring together. This came to the Traffic Safety Committee, I believe, twice in the past 7 years. Both times they were denied. Do you recall a specific reason? Accident data, I think, was an underlying reason.
Yeah.
The traffic count was probably the same as it has been for many, many years. So there is a lot of vehicles here.
Well, the first question we get asked by council whenever we request stop signs is, what's the accident data?
Correct.
Right? And if we go there and say there's been no accidents in the last 5 years,
Okay.
historically, that has been a deciding factor for previous councils.
Okay, good.
That's an important thing to consider. And then historically, the town has been not in favor of adding stop signs at every intersection. It's just that's been previous councils. Again, as we evolve and change and we have new councils, that may change. And that's why I think it's important to come back to council with the pros and cons of adding the stop signs, which we have that report completed. It's already been done. So it's not like we have to redo it. It's already been done and we're just representing it to this council.
Open up for comments.
Yeah, open it up to anybody with the public. Anybody have any comments on this?
Well, since Tampsey is going to be asking us to, or helping us come up with safety plans, I think probably in the past, people didn't want to slow down on their way to the post office, locals, not realizing that the amount of traffic we have now is, I think, much more. And as I said before, cars are bigger. And I don't think we want to wait until we have an accident or fatality. I think it's important to look at intersections that are used by virtually everybody in town every day. And also, as we anticipate construction starting on the pit down there, we're going to have even more traffic in that area. I also, when we talked, the other gentleman talked about people running stop signs. It's pretty rampant in this town now that people are running stop signs, particularly in the residential area. But even downtown, I have seen people just glide right through as if they don't need to stop anymore. So whatever we can do, I think, to enhance safety. And the confusion factor is very, very important. Sometimes people stop out in the middle like, oh, did I go past the stop sign? Oh, no, I didn't have a stop sign. And So I do think that sometimes consistency helps with safety, so perhaps you can find that report, but just because we haven't done it in the past and there haven't been any accidents isn't a reason to not enhance safety, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Both Karen and I have stated that stop signs have really become yield signs. Sometimes I wonder if we should just put 4 yield signs at every intersection, because that's pretty much what they are anyway. Just wondering.
Thank you. All right, I guess we would
Anybody on
vote.
Zoom?
Wait, we need, anybody on Zoom? I thought I asked you already. Yes, I did.
I can offer a motion based on what we talked about if you want.
Yeah.
So I guess I would move that we take your recommendation, Chief, and come back at the next Traffic Safety Committee to present that report, the old report, on with a 4-way stop sign here to understand what council thought with respect to that 4-way, and then make a recommendation to City Council if needed based on adding stop signs, if that's the direction we go.
I would support that motion if it was shorter, but it's good enough.
You're just making it longer.
I know. I support that motion. That makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
All right,
Vote?
vote.
Brandon Swanson,
Yes.
Paul Tomasi,
Yes.
Bob Ferrari.
Yes.
Thank you, the motion is passed.
All right, second old business is the review for the
confusion.
review, a request for a stop sign at eastbound 5th Avenue in San Carlos. Again, I think I just covered that a little bit, but we can definitely discuss it further because we didn't get into too many details on it. Would you like to speak on that again?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Karen.
Karen Ferlito. The reason I brought this up is I have been at the post office before, in the post office parking lot, which sometimes is full of people that are not doing post office business, by the way. But people have come out of that little alley. There's particularly a man I think must live in those apartments in a pickup truck, and he comes out of the alley and he goes the wrong way on 5th. And I happened to be in the post office the other day, and one of the ladies that works there said, "There are so many cars coming down the street the wrong way. We're concerned." And so the next day, I send my husband to the post office, which he absolutely hates doing, especially if he gets a little yellow card. And a truck came the wrong way while he was standing out there talking. And he had his window down, and they said, "You're going the wrong way." And of course, he flipped them off. But I know that the story about trucks rolling back, and of course, my husband drives this little shift car to the post office, so he is not in favor of this. But perhaps even a 3-way stop so that the westbound traffic that has to stop by the Stillwell Hotel had a moment to see the do not enter sign and heed it might even be an answer if you didn't go for a 4-way stop there. But it definitely has become more common for people to go the wrong way. And that is a danger to the pedestrians crossing from the parking lot itself across that mid-block crosswalk, which I'm not even sure is legal to have a mid-block crosswalk like that anymore. And they're not looking to the left. They are looking to the right to see if cars are coming. So I think this is, again, a health and safety issue that needs to be addressed in some way that precludes people from coming down that one-way street the wrong way. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? Comments on this?
Once again, I agree with Karen. I think it's a tricky situation, especially if you're not from here.
Yep.
And even if you are, once in a while, you're not paying attention, and it's easy to get in the wrong place there. Maybe some kind of markings on the street. I don't know. I don't recall anything, red markings or something that would tell you something's wrong here. I can't go down that hill. But clearly a stop sign on the other side, on the east side, doesn't have the issues with rolling backwards and causing problems, so it's a safer situation.
Okay. Anybody online? Well, before I open it up to my fellow colleagues, I will share again, in 2004, this was addressed by this committee, and then again in 2013, in August, we talked about it, and we denied adding stop signs at these intersections for the exact same reasons we did in 2004. So 10 years later, we made the same decision, but what we did do is we added more signage. And I know Brandon has a real love for these signs,
So
and he probably
many
wants to make a
thoughts.
comment about these.
Yeah, so do I.
Dying.
So, to address, Dale, your comments, we do have white arrows pointed on the road, 2 large ones. They're a little bit faded now, but we added, that was some of the adding I think we did in 2013, was to add that, those markings on the road to hopefully help keep people from driving down the hill. All right, I'll open it up.
Oh, I got to talk about those signs. Okay, Rob, you go back to the last view you had for me, please, looking southbound on San Carlos. So I think maybe back. Sure, that's a good one.
That's good.
So my thought on this, and we talked about this out on site yesterday, is that I think for sure there's a confusion issue here, and part of it is because it's a wacky intersection. But I think that the intersection is oversigned. As we stood out there yesterday, and if you stare at this and actually look at that sort of Christmas tree of signs, you have an arrow that points to the right, an arrow that points to the left, 2 arrows that point other directions, and an arrow on the other side of the street that points to the right. So you've got arrows pointing all over the dang place. Like we were joking about, one should say like Himalayas this way, Santa Cruz this way. It's kind of a mess. So I think what happens is that you just don't really know what the sign is telling you to do or not to do. I don't think we need the yellow sign on top. We don't really need the one-way sign coming up, because if you have a don't turn right arrow, then that takes care of that. You don't need both of those don't turn rights, because you probably can't see that lower one, but it confuses your view. You really just, people know what a do not enter sign means. I think there was good intention with all of these signs, but I think they've just added up over the years. And you kind of Chief had the history as we were standing there. He pointed to each sign and said, this one was added this year, this one was added this year. They all have a vintage, basically.
Right.
Rob installed them.
Yeah, I just think we're oversigned. Even, the fact that there's a sign that says cross traffic does not stop. There's so many signs. So I think we should take a critical look at which are the most effective signs to leave and declutter the noise, because that's mental noise. When someone looks at that and they're coming into that intersection at speed heading westbound, that's mental noise right there that they have to figure out what to do with those 5 different arrows in a split second, versus just a big red sign that says do not enter, which we're all very familiar with. So psychologically, I think it's a bad situation. I'm not a psychologist, but I'm just saying it doesn't make sense. I heard the suggestion about maybe a stop sign heading westbound. It's not the worst idea in the world either, because it does give you a minute to pause. But I think a good starting place would be to declutter that sign and then freshen up all the arrows in the street. To Dale's point, I think that's true. We noticed that was something we said standing out there, is that the arrow is not only coming up the hill, but there's 2 arrows coming down the hill that say left, that point left and right. Those need to be freshened up as well. So I think that just we need to maybe recognize more that this is a dangerous intersection, and we need to be constantly on top of making sure everything's bright and visible and clean and not decluttered on the signage posts. Those are all my thoughts. I dumped them out.
Okay, I have some thoughts.
Okay.
Thank you, Brandon. I totally agree that yellow sign doesn't belong. That's only adds confusion, so I think that's the first to go. I respectfully disagree on the one-way sign. In fact, it's only shown from the north, and on the south, going southbound, you can see the one-way arrow. Coming northbound, you can't see it. It's not painted. But nothing else denotes that street as one-way. That's the only sign that says it's one-way. Yes, the do not enter tells you not to go that way, but we need to designate it as a one-way street if that's what it remains to be. So I would add the one-way on the other side of that same black and white sign. I think the other 2 signs, the do not enter and the no right, are still needed in this funky intersection. In terms of I would be easily persuaded. When we were there yesterday, it looked like it probably makes more sense to add 2 more stop signs than just the one on the going westbound. The one on westbound does make sense because that gives people, forces them to stop and take a look at what's going on and to see that you can't go forward. So that would help. I just don't I'm not a big fan of 3-way stops in an intersection like this, because then we're just changing the confusion from one method to another. So only the people going uphill can keep going. So I would probably recommend to make it a 4-way stop if we're going to add stop signs. The traffic, what was the traffic? I'm sorry, the collision accident 0?
No, we've had 2 accidents in the last 5 years.
Oh, okay.
So, as I sit here and think, I agree. I don't think we need the no right turn signs, but we need the 1-way sign. Probably don't need the 2-way sign. We can look at all that and make those recommendations. Here's a thought. When we did the tour of safety, or whatever we did, the tour of inspection yesterday, can you back up just a little bit and look down that road? So, right where that white, that's the
Too far
bird's eye
back.
view.
Too far back.
Roll up. Okay. If you look to the left in front of the BMW, that green curb is daylighting curb. We have to paint that red anyway.
Good.
Could we not take that out altogether? And this is a big project, we'd have to get approved, but make that curb wider and narrow that entryway and exitway off of 5th. If you narrow it, it's a little bit more obvious that it's not a 2-way road, because it looks like a 2-way road when I look at it this way. We have really nice planting on the right by the do not enter sign, but on the other side, it's a really narrow sidewalk anyway, which is going to the post office. Maybe we could actually widen that and do a bump out to make it really much more narrow. And then if you have a bump out, you maybe have another, hate to say it, a sign there that says do not enter.
You could have do not enter on
Do not
both
enter on both
sides.
sides,
Yeah.
which would really probably help that. With the white arrows pointed, freshen those up.
Yep.
That's a much bigger project, but I think that actually, we're losing that spot anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That was our solution at Lincoln and Third, was 2 bump outs and 2 do not enter signs.
that's right.
So it'll
Yeah.
be consistent with something else we've already done.
Can I ask a question?
And Dale had his hand up too as well, so this is much more relaxed, so go ahead. You're gonna agree with each other anyway, I have a feeling. So, no, go ahead, Karen, go ahead.
You need to tell Hugo to tell me.
Come on up to the mic though, please.
You get your steps in.
I did not do a complete assessment, but the man that comes out of the alley, is there a sign there saying right turn only from those apartments?
That's a good question.
Because he's doing it all the time, so.
Yeah, to me, that's an issue with that individual person,
Right.
and maybe it's an arrow on the, out of that spot telling people they have to turn right. But I have a feeling it's a behavioral thing that we would need to address with the
It
with the
could be.
person. I don't know
but,
if there's a sign there. Maybe we paint an arrow, right turn only or something.
Like we have across the street on the driveway coming out.
Yes, like we
Yeah.
have coming out of the post office.
Nothing coming out of that.
And yeah, that,
And I did bring it up sort of subtly, but is that crosswalk in the middle of the block a legal crosswalk? I have heard that it is not.
I'd have to look at what the legal part of it. I've heard that it is not, and mid-block crosswalks aren't, but I see a lot of them when I do my travels. I don't know what the rules and regulations are on those.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Thank
I
you.
don't want to make comment and it'd be public record. I don't know what it is.
Again, this is not just an idle complaint. This is just my concern about health and safety. And there's a lot of traffic in that area, and there will be even more confusion again once that construction starts. So whatever we can do to enhance that safety, I would really appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
To finish your thought about the bump out, I think if you're going to do a bump out on the south side, you should extend the bump out on the north side a little as well, so it really gives the illusion, my traffic calming background from 5 years ago, you really want to narrow that whole thing as much as you can. And I don't know, that whole thing should be evaluated. To back up a little bit, to agree with Karen again, that cars are getting bigger. And it's not that they're getting bigger size-wise. I just looked at getting a new Countryman SE electric car, 4,550 pounds.
Yes.
And it's a small car, so even the small cars
The
are
batteries, yeah.
very dangerous weapons at this point. It's a big deal.
Yeah, thank you. All right. So we have a recommendation. Do we land on anything?
Oh, you throw out such good ideas out of the clear blue sky like that.
The bulb out, I think, would be the ultimate best solution.
Yeah.
But that's not a quick solution.
No.
I think right now we should do something in the interim to improve it.
Well, could we do, so we're gonna have to paint that curb red, right? Maybe this wouldn't solve the problem, but as a short-term fix, could we paint hashes on the right-hand side of this view to create like a
Make it
painted
down.
bulb out? To give that effect of narrowing it? I don't know if that's gonna serve the same physical barrier, but we can try that concept out with a painted bulb out.
Yeah, I kind of visualized that too when I first said it. I'm like, maybe we just paint it.
Yeah,
That actually might.
and if it
help.
works, then we endeavor to build one within the next year or something, but
Have we done that
you won't
anywhere
even be
else?
here. You won't even be
It
here.
takes more than a year.
You won't even be here. Yeah, I mean, that might be, but I think that we do need to come to some sort of decision on decluttering the signage programming there too.
Bike rack,
What's that?
bike rack, squirrel, bike rack.
No, don't start with that.
So I, that's part of the recommendation is to assess the intersection, remove unnecessary signage, like right
Right.
turn only and the two
Right.
yellow arrows, which.
Mhm.
But what about a stop sign heading west? So it is a three-way stop sign, which I'm not a huge fan of, but it might be something worth considering. So I don't want to.
Well, you and Bob are more from a traffic expert perspective, more of a traffic expert than I am. So if you guys, I'll defer to you guys on the three-way thing. If it does more harm than good, I'll leave that up to you guys.
Well, I'll make a comment looking at this picture right now is when we made the recommendation in the past not to do a stop sign there, Stillwell building, what's it called?
Yeah, hotel.
It's called the Stillwell.
Oh, wasn't as large. I don't know if it extended that far to the intersection
It's always been there.
and the plants, but it was it
We
that?
had
They
we had
didn't touch
trees.
that at all.
They didn't
We had
encroach
three
any-
trees.
There were two big trees where those two olive trees are. There used to
Okay.
be two big pine trees there. Thanks, Rob.
Can you
Just
prove
plant
that? I
those.
mean, do you have any evidence of that? I'm just kidding.
There you go.
Thanks, Rob.
Yes, you're
I
on.
remember the building. I didn't know if it stuck out.
Yeah, no,
It
they
was
didn't
visual.
they didn't do any work on that part of the building other than facade stuff. It didn't come out any
Here's
farther.
a historic view, just a do not enter sign,
Mhm. It was cleaner.
That's funny. How far back is that? How long?
2008.
Wow.
Do not
That was a
enter
one-way
in-
sign, too.
Do not enter in two one-way signs.
So I think we can go back to some of that signage. I'm
Mhm.
not opposed to adding a stop sign going westbound. I'm really not at this point because of the way people drive and the foot traffic
Mhm.
coming off of the Stillwell building. If you're not slowing down there, it's not a good situation. And that, again, that's our truck route. So that's a consideration for me as well. You have people entering the truck route without stopping. I'm gonna make a recommendation, just to put it out there, that we assess the signage and remove signage that we deem unnecessary. And then we make a recommendation to council that a stop sign heading westbound. And when we paint the curb red for daylighting, we extend the painted lines to give the visual effect of the road narrowing.
Mm-hmm.
With that, I would agree with that. I would second it.
Could I ask that you guys amend your motion and also just, I know we'll probably do it anyway, but I want to put it on the record that we're going to go and freshen up all the arrows that are in the road too?
That's a call to Rob. The Rob's right here.
Yes.
Yes.
That's an automatic thing. That's not.
Okay.
do that tomorrow.
So that's a yes?
So for it's a holiday, yeah.
You said I talked for a while.
What's that?
Just say yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Okay.
No, so we're not doing a four-way stop.
All right, so we're doing,
Three-way.
We're keeping it three-way, but we're
okay,
narrowing.
stop sign at westbound, clean up the signage, paint the red curb anyway, which is part of the daylighting, and then like flare it out as some kind of stripe to neck down the intersection with striping.
And when we freshen up those arrows, we're gonna add one that's a right turn only out of the alleyway. Right?
Oh, where that gentleman is, yeah, that's a good idea.
And increase enforcement.
There's a 16-part of motion.
So the motion is to clean up the signage, add a stop sign heading westbound, and you're saying we don't need to freshen up the painting, we can just do that.
It's automatic.
It's automatic, because it's already there.
But we're gonna flare out
Yes.
as if it was a bulb out. And can I suggest that we amend the amended motion to include, reassess it in like 6 months or a year to see if the three-way stop is working right?
Yes, I agree. You got it? Did you get it?
Did you get
We don't take minutes. so-
50?
What's that?
We don't take minutes.
Oh,
50% of it.
You guys done?
we're done.
Okay. Brandon Swanson?
Yep.
Paul Tomasi?
Yes.
Bob Harari?
Yes.
Thank you, the motion is passed.
Wow, that was old business. That was a long one.
Yeah.
All right, discussion items. A, review a request for marked parking stalls on the east side of Mission Street between 8th and 9th Avenues. Is what do we call the person who's complaining? I don't know if they're the complainant. Anybody here to speak on
Concerned
that?
party.
Concerned party,
Yeah, it's a little nicer.
Thank you. I didn't. No, not here. So, the issue on this is that we have events at the Sunset Center, correct? And we have a lot of vehicles that are parking and starting to block driveways as we try to cram the vehicles that are getting bigger into these spots where maybe smaller cars used to fit, and it's starting to block driveways. And the request is just to add like the T marking parking stalls where vehicles will fit, which is consistent with this street already, and it's just a smaller section than that entire block on the east side that's asking for it. It's probably gonna be 3 or 4 spots, that's it, that we are looking to paint and identify. Did I capture that?
Yep.
I think so, yeah.
Does anybody wanna speak on this item? Anybody in Zoom land? Any comments from the gallery? I mean,
Just, we would remove the X, that's the existing X,
Yeah.
and make the parking Ts. There's the X. X's.
correct. So the motion is to go forward and add parking spaces on the east side of Mission Avenue between 8th and 9th where vehicles can fit without blocking driveways, and remove any existing X's that have been painted in the roadway to prevent people, there won't be a need for them.
Is that a motion?
That is a motion.
I second.
Brandon Swanson?
Yes.
Paul Tomasi?
Yes.
Bob Harari?
Yes.
The motion is passed.
All right, next item is B, review a request for a no parking sign on Santa Rita 2 southeast of Ocean Avenue. And that was by the judge, Judge Wild, who brought that forward. And I don't see her here, but maybe she's online. Okay. Would anybody like to speak on this from the public?
That's the wall, right?
Yeah, back up just.
Okay. Anybody in Zoom land?
Could you just sort of explain the diagram?
We will. Yeah, this is Santa Rita looking down towards Mountain View.
Yeah.
And we're up just off Ocean Avenue, and the issue is that vehicles are parking against this wall in front of the residence, which not only makes the road narrow, but I think it prevents, the applicant is saying it's dangerous and prevents them from seeing when they are leaving their driveway. I believe that was the complaint fully.
Do we have any years that show a car there?
There's no, every photo it's clear.
All right, so anybody want to take the lead on this one?
Yeah, I mean, with that description, I guess we should re-ask, does anyone from the public want to, because we didn't provide a description of what we were talking about, so do you guys want to make any comments on this after hearing that? Doesn't look like it. Okay, so what we discussed on this one is, this is a rough street. We have a lot of no parking here already. There's several of our green posts. You can see one in the very, very foreground right there on the right of the picture. There's one in the background. This one is unique because that wall is so far out, and so putting a post may not be effective or may cause more of a problem. I think what we had talked about, and I think what I would suggest is doing some sort of writing on the ground that says, no parking, rather than, not painting on the wall, painting on the asphalt, putting a stencil down and putting something that says no parking there to make it clear that you can't park there. And we've had, I think probably since I've been on this committee for the last 4 years, we've had 2 or 3 meetings about this section of street, just because it is such, it's so
similar
rough.
streets.
It's so narrow.
If I could, Rob, if you go down to the no parking post, right there. I don't know what it says there, but in the field, it doesn't show, it shows going south. That we're missing an arrow that shows to the north. That way, the no parking post over by Ocean Avenue shows going south, but it doesn't have the other direction on that post. So I think if we do both, stenciling in the no parking here in front of the wall and adding the arrow on that second post.
I think the bulb burnt out again.
What's that?
Oh yeah, he's just gonna keep cycling it.
Okay.
He'll get it back on in a second.
Okay, but you see here
Yeah,
you see
I see what you're saying, Bob.
the arrow to the south, which is
Mhm.
great. That's fine.
It doesn't connect with an arrow anywhere.
Yeah, it doesn't connect to another arrow
Right.
going to the north. So we'll just add a little arrow, no parking.
Got it.
I think that's the right solution.
Okay,
I agree. No comment.
that's
So
a good
I'll
one.
make a motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Oh, do I have to say the motion?
I thought you said it already.
Let's just
Yeah, I said it already.
Go ahead and
it.
clarify it. Just
Yeah.
make it clear.
Sorry.
All right, for the record, the motion is to stencil in the words "no parking" in front of the wall on the pavement, and to add a northbound arrow on that no parking post to show the limits of the no parking zone.
Now I'll second.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Awesome.
Brandon Swanson,
Yes.
Paul Tomasi,
Yes.
Bob Harari.
Yes.
Thank you, the motion is passed.
All right. Item C, review of the Santa Rita and Mountain View Avenue intersection. Again, our Judge Wild brought that one forward to us as well, just further down the block as we approach Mountain View. All right.
So the issue-
Yeah, go ahead. No, please.
The issue at hand on this one was as you're coming down Santa Rita, there's little to no visibility looking westbound. That is just made even worse on Mountain View. It's made even worse because there is a parking space right behind that 15-mile-an-hour speed limit sign. So when a car is there, the visibility is even worse. It's really, really sketchy to get out into that road. So I believe the request might have actually been for some sort of like stop sign. What we observed out in the field is I'm not even sure a stop sign would help that much because you'd have to have the stop sign and the limit line so far out that you're going to be exposing a car in the middle of a street. So we need to find some way to actually increase the visibility to look around a corner basically. And rather than tearing out all this fencing and everything on the right-hand side, which would be the other way to do it, and getting rid of those trees, one option could be to put a mirror, one of those convex mirrors that would help people see around the corner. We did look on site when we were out there. There's not a lot of options. We don't want to put a mirror on that tree, that nice tree there. But there may be an option to incorporate it into that no parking post that already exists, perhaps on top of it, flatten out the pyramid on top and put like a steel post in it or something that we could affix a mirror to, something along those lines.
This is similar to what we did at Santa Fe and Mountain View, right? It was Santa Fe, just about 2 meetings ago, where we did the same type of design instead of to help motorists see other cars coming, rather than removing parking stalls or, like you said, excessive changes to fencing or trees. Those convex mirrors are really beneficial, especially at night. You can see headlights coming. So I think that's a good solution.
So we should open it to public now that we've kind of explained what the issue is.
All right. Anybody from the public want to speak on this? How about on Zoom land? Okay, thank you.
Just want to have a couple of comments. I think the convex mirror, it was probably a year ago that we did on Santa Fe, but I believe we got very positive feedback. It works.
Mm-hmm.
It's a low-cost solution. It sure beats the more radical solution of a stop sign, like what Brandon was saying, may not even be all that effective. So it seems to me that that's the next best thing, is to put the mirror in and see how it goes.
Yeah, we'll probably have to go out there. I mean, I'm just suggesting on top of that no parking post, the angle may not be right, so we may find ourselves having to put in a post.
But we can certainly work with Rob's group to,
Yeah.
Exactly how it would be mounted,
Yeah.
but it'd be in that vicinity, and it would show
Yeah.
people coming southbound on Santa Rita that there's a car coming from the west.
The kit that comes with has
What's
few
that?
different brackets.
Okay.
So we can just do one right on the back of that
Okay.
post and just.
Okay.
And it'd also be helpful in the dark, because this is probably a little more gnarly in the dark,
Mhm.
but you'll be able to see the headlights coming.
Yep. All right, well, if you guys are good with that, then I'll go ahead and make the motion to install a convex mirror on the, I guess that's the south side of Mountain View, looking westbound to see oncoming traffic. Finding the best location, working with Rob and his crew.
I'll second. Beat you.
Yep.
I'll second it.
Brandon Swanson,
Yes?
Paul Tomasi,
Yes.
Bob Harari.
Yes.
Thank you, the motion is passed.
All right, last item. Review a request for a no parking sign on the southeast corner of 10th Avenue and Dolores Street, and that's from Tarantino. Anybody here to speak on that? Anybody on Zoom? All right. Who wants to speak on this? Would you?
I think you should, Chief.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can speak on this. This is from a resident who sent in a request for us to review this, and the issue is that if cars park in front of this entryway to their residence, it creates a safety hazard for them should they need emergency medical care and have an ambulance or fire engine show up. And specifically, it was to whether they'd have the ability to get a gurney into the house to help the residents living there. So we went out and looked at this site yesterday, and my comments on this are this. This isn't an uncommon request. We have a lot of residents here, and any one of our houses would have this issue should they need medical assistance at a residence. I did speak with the fire department and our ambulance crew, and they said, with the view of a car parked in front, they said that yes, it impacts their ability to rapidly get a gurney through there, but it wouldn't prevent them from getting medical aid to somebody or getting them out. Our gurneys have legs that lift, they have chair lifts they can use, so it's not going to slow the response to get aid. What it'll do is just have them have to maneuver around a vehicle. And so that, I don't see that as a concern that, I hope that the residents are okay with that, but for me, that would satisfy my need as a resident to know that our paramedics can get in and get you aid. When we were on site, we also did look at the side pathway from the driveway, which is a gravel pathway, which if needed, a gurney could also go up that way into the house. So there's multiple ways into this entrance.
And there's a door back there
Yeah,
as well.
thanks, Rob.
and a door.
And there's already a no parking sign there. So an emergency vehicle would always be able to park right there and go up the driveway and then use that stone path there.
Correct.
Yeah.
In addition, this could be precedent setting because there's many, many locations that have the same kind of issue.
Yeah. I forgot now. Do we make a motion or do we open it?
Well,
up
I
to the
mean,
public?
I think we did open
talked
it
a
up
lot
and no
about
one-
the issue. Maybe we should just see if anybody from the public wants to comment on what we talked about.
Anybody want to make comment on this one?
Could you go back to the other picture? I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think you're supposed to have a stone pathway that goes across the city's easement there. I know that when we did that survey a while back, remember we looked at every single place in town, maybe before you were here, Brandon, and we actually looked at what landscaping would have to be removed to be in conformance. And if you had this would have to be removed. So that really probably shouldn't even be there in the first place. So this would be precedent setting, and I don't think it's a good idea to, it basically keeps people from parking in front of their house, and that could be the reason. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want, which place by the tree or the other? Did they
Right.
not want it? Or just,
where the pathway
right
is.
there,
Right there.
okay. Because I'm noticing with the bigger vehicles, of course, when somebody would park, say, by the tree, okay, when you're trying to come and make a right turn off of, is that Dolores? Yeah. It makes it, you have to go completely in the other lane in order to go around it. There's a huge vehicle parking at 10th and Junipero now on that side, and that's a big steep driveway down, and you have to go clear out and around this big vehicle, and then you're in the other lane, and if somebody's coming down. So, I mean, we just have these sticky issues all over town because in many cases the public right-of-way is either planted or there's rocks where people can't park anymore. So, I don't know. Use your best judgment on this one, but if it were right there by the tree, I could see why it'd be a good place to put a no parking because of coming off of Dolores on a right turn, but the other side, no. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, if I could comment a little bit, because the encroachment stuff that falls under the planning and building. So Dale's mostly right. We typically don't see these encroachments. This is a permanent encroachment, not the stone so much as the walkway. So I want to talk about the walkway. So there are provisions in our code that allow people to have these sort of walkways off of the street directly to their front step. But we didn't do any research on this to see if these guys have an encroachment. They may have processed an encroachment for this. We don't know. Certainly those rocks are not permitted, so we'll talk to them about those. I noticed that when we were out there too. But the thing with an encroachment is we're not giving away land. We're just letting people use the land. It's still the city's property. So even if this was a permanent encroachment, it's still the city property that they're allowed to use. So it's not like they've gained permanent private use of that. So I think that even speaks more to the point of not doing a no parking for their benefit only. It's still public land.
Rob, is that a fire hydrant on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why we have no parking on that side, because you can't park within so many feet of a fire hydrant. Okay. You want to make a recommendation?
No.
The last one? Okay.
Oh, the last one?
Your last traffic
My
safety
last
committee
traffic safety
recommendation.
committee meeting.
Wow.
Wow.
End of an era.
Interesting. I make a motion that we deny the request for a no parking sign at the southeast corner of 10th and Dolores.
I will
For
second
the,
that.
for the reasons stated above.
Yep, I'll second that.
Paul Tomasi,
Yes.
Brandon Swanson,
Yes.
Bob Harari.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion is denied.
All right. We're going to adjourn the meeting, but we're going to wait, we have future items? Is that what's coming up, or we got two hands?
Sorry, we don't have a future
I thought you already had.
item on
We
our
don't-
agenda.
yeah, but
so
go ahead, go ahead.
So many future items.
we'd love to hear from you if we can.
We have a year's worth of backlog already.
Okay, Well, you know our beautiful medians along Junipero. And some of them have no parking signs and some of them don't. And my observation is that lately we've had trucks pulling into and parking on those medians, and that's damaging to the tree roots for one thing, and it leaves big divots sometimes depending on how carefully or not they park. We're also expecting at least 2 more new construction issues right there on Junipero between 12th and 11th. And the other day there were also trucks parked on the median, and there was trucks parked on the median now down near 10th. And also when some of the construction was going on between 8th and 7th, there were trucks sometimes parked in the median. So I think in order to protect the landscaping that the city has put in there and protect the oak tree roots particularly, we need to perhaps add extra no parking signs in those medians, especially as we anticipate construction along there. Thank you.
Thank you. Rob?
I hope I'm revisiting an item that I raised during the public, and I apologize, I forgot to mention something that may add some credence to my argument about 6 between, say, Santa Rita and Torres. I work at the Visitors Center on Mondays, and the number one thing that we're asked by tourists is, do you have the little brochure on the cottages to go look at? And I always tell them, when you leave here, go up Ocean, hang a left on Junipero, hang a right on 6th, and run right into them. And so there is a lot of foot traffic there on visitors that I send every Monday between 10 and 1:30. It is the number one requested thing at the Visitor Center. We get beyond where's the restroom at the plaza. So if this helps any from the perspective of you get a lot of foot traffic going up there's no sidewalks. So just, I'm not trying to add influence, but I'm just suggesting to all of you that there's just another reason why it might be worth looking at keeping the visitors to our community a little safer. And I, by the way, I do encourage them to be careful when they're out looking, because they take the flyer and they get their kids to run around like a treasure hunt, trying to find these cute little houses. But I always remind them to be safe because there's no sidewalks. So just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, great.
Appreciate it.
That's a good point.
Happy Thanksgiving, by the way.
Hey,
Thank
you
you
too.
I'm going to make a comment about Bob
Oh,
before we end.
no, I'm gonna, when I close the meeting, it'll be
You will?
a comment, yeah.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
I've got a lot
Can
of
I wait till then after you give your comment and do another comment?
Sure.
I just like to thank Bob. I've been coming to these meetings for a long time, and I just want to thank Bob for making these meetings enjoyable. And I highly recommend the public come to these meetings in person because it's a lot of fun. And you get to you've seen that you get to interact, which you can't typically do at the normal meeting. So thank you, Bob. I appreciate
Thank you,
all of the
Dale.
effort you put into these meetings.
Thank you.
And
Appreciate
made the city safer. Thank you.
I did my best.
I think we'll close the meeting, but we're going to close it in honor of Bob Harari for his years with the city and all the work he's done on this committee. We want to thank you.
Well, thank you very much. This is a really cool committee because it's so down to earth, it's cost effective, it's efficient. I think going back 7 years, it would kind of change a little bit of the format, but we do it quarterly on a standard date and time. And I wanted to thank Rob for keeping track of all the, and the chief for keeping track of all the items as we go through. So I think it really became a really grassroots, down to earth, get things done, productive committee. And I enjoyed serving on it for sure.
Well, it's been a lot of fun doing this with you, Bob. And this is one of the few sort of public meetings where we can jab at each other and it's okay.
Yeah, we do that in Forest and Beach, but
Yeah.
we're probably not supposed to.
You're probably not supposed to.
And also I wanted to thank Mary Bilsey will be acting Public Works Director starting December, January. So she'll be sitting right here, and her traffic expertise is through marriage. So she's married to the fellow who runs the MC TAC committee. So if we
She's
need
also a very smart individual on her own.
she's incredibly way smarter than me. So
Yeah.
you're way ahead.
That's
Yes.
right.
Yes.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
With that, we'll leave with a hip hip Harari. Meeting adjourned.